What do you think they're really doing out there?
What do you mean?
Welcome to MsMojo. And today, we're looking at Don't Worry, Darling, all the drama, and why we are worried.
I don't trust it.
For this list, we'll be looking at all the scandals, controversies, and rumors swirling around Olivia Wilde's psychological thriller starring Harry Styles and Florence Pugh. What do you make of all the drama? Does it make you want to see the movie? Let us know in the comments. Our story begins in September 2020 when Deadline announced that Harry Styles had been cast in Olivia Wilde's 2022 movie Don't Worry, Darling. At this point, all we knew was that he was replacing Shia LaBeouf, who'd pulled out over scheduling conflicts, and that Wilde claimed she did a victory dance after Styles came on board. She told Vogue that, like her film, Styles is, quote, incredibly stylistic, and she admired how he confidently broke traditional gender perceptions.
And if you've stood in front of thousands of people and performed, you're not going to be intimidated by a few cameras. So that kind of openness and playfulness and fearlessness is so wonderful on a set.
Now let's fast forward to January 2021. The director and singer are spotted holding hands. Naturally, the internet was flooded with speculation over their relationship status.
He told Dazed back in November that he's, quote, always tried to compartmentalize my personal life and my working life.
A source told People that the pair had, in fact, been dating for a while. Apparently, after growing close on set, sparks had started to fly. However, some wondered if this might all just be a publicity stunt.
The Don't Worry, Darling director said, quote, it's obviously really tempting to correct a false narrative, but I think what you realize is that when you're really happy, it doesn't matter what strangers think about you.
Still, their relationship continued long after cameras stopped rolling. They were spotted out and about, engaging in PDA, and seemed perfectly happy. Both have stated the importance of privacy when it comes to their relationship.
Olivia also told Vogue that she values the opinions of those closest to her, adding that she is just loving her life these days. She added, quote, I'm happier than I've ever been.
There were, however, a couple of people who allegedly weren't so thrilled about this budding romance. In November 2020, Wilde and fiancé Jason Sudeikis announced their separation. Apparently, it was all very amicable, and the duo was committed to doing what was best for their two children.
The source adds that they, quote, will continue to be each other's biggest supporters, especially when it comes to parenting their children and their careers.
But in January 2021, conflicting rumors began to emerge over Sudeikis' response to Wilde's new relationship. Some claimed there were no ill feelings as the couple had closed their chapter long before Styles came into the picture.
I think he's less interested in trying to control things and more interested in what he personally can learn from them and how he can sort of be a better man and like live a more thoughtful, interesting life.
Sources denied that the singer was the reason they ended their engagement. However, others claim Sudeikis was heartbroken as he'd hoped they could work past their issues.
There's something I could do or something I could say that would make you be happy. Just being with me, I'd do it. I'd do it in a nanosecond.
But in April 2022, while promoting Don't Worry, Darling at CinemaCon, someone emerged from the audience and pushed an envelope marked personal and confidential toward the director while she was talking.
After some initial confusion, she went ahead with her presentation while the audience speculated over what could be inside.
She opened it on stage to find custody papers within. A representative for Sudeikis insisted he had no idea she'd received the documents during the event, and, quote, would never condone her being served in such an inappropriate manner.
The director of the conference where this took place said in a statement they have never had an incident like this before and are certainly now reevaluating security procedures as to how this was even able to happen in the first place.
Later, Wilde expressed concern over the security breach since safety requirements had been extra stringent given the COVID-19 pandemic. She called the move vicious, but said it wasn't surprising, stating, quote, there's a reason I left that relationship.
You got to have some sympathy for her in that moment. Absolutely. A lot of questions still this morning.
Thank you,
Chanel.
Another person who was allegedly unhappy with Wilde and Styles' relationship was the movie's leading lady, Florence Pugh. Reports claimed that perhaps there had been some overlap between Wilde's relationships, and that made people on set uncomfortable.
I live next door. You wouldn't believe the things I've heard. Jack and Alice only have time for each other.
However, it was the typically vocally active Pugh's radio silence that left many wondering if the on-screen besties were quite the opposite behind the scenes. Fans noted that Pugh's usually an enthusiastic promoter of her work on social media, yet she was uncharacteristically stum about this one.
Doesn't make any sense.
Well, the truth rarely makes sense when you omit key details.
Before shooting commenced, Pugh announced just how excited she was to work with her quote idol. So why the sudden shift? Online sleuths noticed that the actress wasn't interacting with the director's social media posts regarding the film, not even ones praising her work. Pugh was barely posting about the movie on her own accounts either, and many believed she lacked passion for the project when she did it.
That was definitely a job where I admired the work of the hair and makeup and the costume department every single day. They did an amazing job.
However, she did share an Instagram post after filming wrapped, congratulating much of the crew but leaving out the director. Still, it's important to note that no explicit comments have been made, and this is all the work of internet detectives reading between the lines. Pugh's apparent reluctance to do much press for the movie has only added fuel to the fire.
I'm curious to hear where she's going with this.
According to some sources, the Don't Worry Darling execs were aware that Pugh's promotional engagements would be few from the start. After they wrapped, she started filming Dune Part 2, which explained her absence.
Plot twist.
You know agents are so hot to trot right now. They're like, buy, sell. You can have her, you can't have her. You want her?
According to one executive, Pugh would be, quote, doing greetings from the set of Dune instead. Still, fans who couldn't make it to the Venice Film Festival premiere and were hoping to hear about the movie from its leading lady would be highly disappointed. According to Deux Mois, Styles also turned down various interview opportunities.
Nothing to say when everything gets in the way.
Anyway, fans also noticed some contention over how Wilde and Pugh discussed the film's sex scenes.
Those who released the trailer, it sounds like, included that in the trailer, knowing that people would be talking about that, right?
A steamy interaction in the film's trailer amassed plenty of intrigue. However, Pugh had no interest in being part of that conversation, saying that there was too much focus on the sex and not enough on the film's content.
Obviously, the nature of hiring the most famous pop star in the world, you're going to have conversations like that. That's just not what I'm going to be discussing because this movie is bigger and better than that, and the people who made it are bigger and better than that.
Meanwhile, Wilde happily discussed the subject, asking, quote, why isn't there any good sex scenes in movies anymore? She also spoke candidly about the importance of subverting typical depictions of heteronormative sexual relationships and redirecting the attention to female pleasure.
Female pleasure, the best versions of it that you see nowadays are in queer films. Why are we more comfortable with female pleasure when it's two women on film? In hetero sex scenes in film, the focus on men as the recipients of pleasure is almost ubiquitous.
Since Wilde's comments followed Pugh's, some believe there was more to this story than meets the eye.
Well, I think obviously everybody is going to be asking that question.
As we've seen already, the rumor mill seemed determined to come at Don't Worry Darling from every angle.
Boys and their toys. At least we know they're getting work done.
In August 2022, Wilde was forced to deny the latest hearsay that Styles' salary was 3 times greater than his co-stars, even though Pugh's Alice is arguably the film's main protagonist. The original source of these claims, Showbiz Galore, alleged that Styles earned $2.5 million while Pugh received $700,000. They had no evidence to support these claims, but of course, it got people fired up. Wilde dismissed it as nothing more than clickbait. She added that as a woman in showbiz, this falsity upset her as equal pay is, quote, something that I have fought for myself and others.
Especially being a director, there is absolutely no validity to those claims.
Also in August 2022, Variety published an interview with the director where she attempted to quash the falsehoods surrounding this project. She addressed many subjects we've already broached, from the controversial CinemaCon scandal to the rumored feud with Pugh. Perhaps she hoped to redirect attention back to the film, but she only seemed to stoke the flames more.
She starts the film with a huge smile on her face, and she's full of joy and laughter and passion, and she goes then into places of deep fear.
She mentioned how she originally envisioned Styles to play Jack, but when he was unavailable, she cast Shia LaBeouf instead. Eventually, it was announced that Shia LaBeouf was no longer attached to the project, citing scheduling conflicts, as we mentioned at the start. However, now Wilde was alleging that he was fired, saying, quote, his process was not conducive to the ethos she required.
We needed whoever was going to play Jack to be instantly lovable and someone who was deeply charming and empathetic.
She believed him to be combative and maintained that it was her responsibility to create a safe, trusting environment. There were also rumors that he was canned following an uncomfortable altercation with Pugh.
And it's like, ooh, I think we've both been spoiled to this point. It's like we've had lots of lovely people.
But I think, because I read that you have a no assholes policy.
Yes.
Given some of the other recent allegations against LaBeouf, Wilde's version of events seemed plausible enough. Additionally, several studio sources had backed up Wilde's story that LaBeouf was fired.
A lot came to light after this happened that really troubled me in terms of his behavior. I find myself just really wishing him health and evolution because I believe in restorative justice.
However, the actor decided to tell his side of the story, and he had receipts. LaBeouf told Variety via email that he hadn't been fired. Rather, he quit, quote, due to lack of rehearsal time. He forwarded screenshots of text messages he'd apparently sent Wilde calling her out over her misleading comments after her Variety interview was published. The actor also shared emails he sent her on August 17, 2020, telling her he was pulling out of her movie.
In his email to Wilde, LaBeouf asked her to correct the narrative as best as you can, adding, I hope none of this negatively affects you and that your film is successful.
Arguably, the most damning evidence of all was a video Wilde supposedly sent him just 2 days later, pleading with him to reconsider. In the video, Wilde's heard saying that she's, quote, not ready to give up on this yet, and alludes to the animosity between LaBeouf and Pugh.
I think this might be a bit of a wake-up call for Miss Flo. If she really commits, if she really puts her mind and heart into it at this point, and if you guys can make peace, what do you think? Is there hope?
Needless to say, Wilde might have had us sipping the tea, but LaBeouf spilled it everywhere. So much gossip has surrounded Don't Worry Darling for months before it's even set to be released. Should Wilde be worried? Or does all the drama help build the anticipation for her psychological thriller? Only time will tell.
Our life together. We could lose this.
I don't trust him.
Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.